Hello and welcome to Defence Watch. 8th October is Air Force Day, its 74th raising day. This edition of Defence Watch will examine where the IAF has reached and where it is headed. We will also examine the role of air power, its reach, standoff capacity and the decisive impact it brings to bear on the modern battlefield. The Indian Air Force has played a sterling role in maintaining the territorial integrity of the country from the first war in Kashmir in 1947 till Kargil 1999. Besides war, IAF has taken part in numerous UN peacekeeping operations and humanitarian missions like tsunami, flood and earthquake relief. It has done stellar work in all these operations. But lately, it has been beset with some problems like declining numbers of operational squadrons without matching replacements. But as Chief of Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal SP Tyagi said during the press conference on the eve of Air Force Day, there is nothing to worry about. But surely there is something to be concerned about. And to examine these concerns about the prospects of the IAF of the future are Air Marshal Minhi Bawa, the savior of Longewala, Mr. Kapil Chandni, a defense correspondent of a website Bharat Rakshak, and Mr. Pushpindar, historian and editor of the Vayu. But before we start the discussion, take a look at the brief history of the Indian Air Force.
A brief history of the Indian Air Force. 8th October 1932. Indian Air Force raised through an act of the British Parliament. April 1933. Number 1 Squadron of Indian Air Force is raised. March 1945. Royal title conferred on Indian Air Force for services in World War II. January 1950. Redesignated as Indian Air Force. April 1954. First Indian Air Chief Air Marshal Subrata Mukherjee takes over. Today the Indian Air Force has grown to 5 operational Western, Southwestern, Southern, Central and Eastern commands and 2 functional training and maintenance commands.
Pushpindar Chopra, let's start with you. You are the official historian of the IAF. What is the history briefly of the Indian Air Force?
Air Force is actually on its, on the eve of its Platinum Jubilee year, which begins on the 8th of October. And it's been a very exciting history. It's been a very full of odds but great successes also. And the Indian Air Force has really grown from what was a very, very tiny little Air Force to one of the largest in the world today, 74 years later.
But how is it that it started as Indian Air Force in 1932 as opposed to none of the other services being Indian?
Indian Air Force came about actually as a part of the Scheme Committee's deliberations, which mooted the commissioning of Indian officers as King's Commission Indian officers to the Army, various arms of the Army, and they included the Indian Air Force. So the Indian Air Force came about as a kind of an appendage to the Scheme Committee in 1928. The official act of the Indian Air Force formation was in October 832, but the first squadron, just a flight in fact, was 1st of April 1933.
Air Marshal Bawa, could you define what you, in your view, is the importance of air power in the context of the Indian Air Force and the region?
Indian Air Force, as Pushpindar has just mentioned, started as a small force with the Army as an appendage, became a supporting arm, became pervasive in war, became dominant, and today no war can be fought without the air. That's the prominence it has got. As far as our role is concerned, or the air power is concerned, it wants dominance of the skies, it wants to support the Army in operations, preserve the integrity, territorial integrity of the country, and look after all other maintenance, air maintenance work, etc.
Kapil, we've seen how the Air Force has performed in the war in Iraq, the Afghanistan, in Lebanon. But yet, at the end of the day, you still need the infantry to deal with the problem.
True, General, and that is the whole point. And air power can only bore the opposition for you, but you actually need troops to go and occupy, to sort the mess, to bring in a better administration. So air power will facilitate this. But ultimately, if you want to possess area, dominate an area, you need infantry, you need armor on the ground.
And Minhi, what about Indian Air Force's air doctrine, and where does it fit into the joint doctrine, if there is a joint doctrine?
Technology has given the air power today punch and precision. It will devastate and destroy. Army ultimately will mop up and occupy. And today's air doctrine, it fits in the scheme of things that we will fight as a three services joint war and provide the dominance of the skies.
But that joint doctrine is still not out, Kapil?
Yes, it's not out, but then there are various policy papers written by institutions, by staff college, academics about it. And I'm sure they are working on it.
Pushpindar?
I believe the joint doctrine of the armed forces was released recently. It hasn't been made public, of course. The Air Force had its own doctrine, which was released, I believe, in 1994, or was it 96? But this joint doctrine, which is released by the Defence Minister about 2 or 3 months ago, actually for the first time puts all the three services together and put the doctrines sort of supporting each other. It will be very interesting to see once they make it a little more public.
Now, what is, in your view, the current problem in the Air Force when the Chief of Air Staff talks about declining numbers, effect on the balance of power, and how do you propose that this problem will be overcome?
Well, this has been publicly debated quite a lot over the last couple of years. I don't think there's any secret that there has been a decline. After all, aeroplanes have limited life, and when they finish their airframe hours or engine hours, well, they must be grounded. And this is what's been happening over the last 10 years. And the writing has been on the wall, and successive air chiefs have been attempting to get the government to push for a replacement program. And we talk about multi-role combat aircraft requirement, which the Indian Air Force has been mooting since I think 1999, and I understand that the requests to shortlisted companies have not yet gone. I hope they will go soon. So that's one of the problems.
But where did the problem start?
The light combat aircraft delay is certainly what has really knocked the all long-term planning of the stool. The very fact that the light combat aircraft did not go into squadron service back in the mid-90s, which it was supposed to do, has really been a great dilemma for the Indian Air Force.
So that's I
would say the key.
The key problem. You've dealt with the program while you were in the Air Force and later. How do we propose to overcome the current problem? Now you have this problem that the LCA is not delivering, some say not even till 2012. You haven't got the RPF out so far for the 126 multi-combat role aircraft, and you've down from 39 squadrons or 39.5 to something like 32, 33. So unless more come in and only aircraft are being retired, how is this problem going to be resolved?
Let me put the whole thing in correct perspective. The sky train of China should make Indian nations sit in their seats. We have been sliding down on the slide of redundancy of aeroplanes, and we've not taken stock of it, and now we are nearly halfway down from 45 squadron strength, which we never actually got up to 45, though we were authorized strength is 45. We went up to 39 or 40. And now we are coming down to about 29 squadrons, which is halfway down. So you are nearly halfway down that slide of redundancy. If we don't wake up now, you will have suffered.
How will we wake up?
For any nation to really keep up with this has to produce aeroplanes indigenously. As you yourself have said, the LCA has been sliding from the mid-90s to now and not likely to come into service till 2012. If that be so, the redundancy will set in so much that you will have no aeroplanes to fly.
So, Kapil, what is the plan? We believe that the Air Chief has a 3-point action plan which has been talked about. Now, what